On Friar podcast coming to you on a Thursday afternoon. Padres are back home. Derek just been hanging out in the Padres clubhouse, catching up with the fellas on the heels of a 6-game road trip that was mostly bad, but
Yeah, that
some
was
good.
fun to talk about that. That was stellar.
Some
They
some
love those
talking
questions.
points. Yeah, I'm sure they're always enthused about those. So we'll get to kind of the takeaways, the big ticket items from your time in the Padres clubhouse, discuss the happenings of the last week. Lots of people talking about Manny. Is Matt Waldron the ace of the staff? Jackson Merrill, indeed looking like Jackson Barrel. Had a really, really impressive last week. And
Mhm.
he had a good answer to a question I believe you asked about the NL Rookie of the Year race, which we'll get
Yes.
to
And
as well.
I knew what he was going to say when I asked it. I just want to hear him say it.
Yeah, sometimes you got to give people to an opportunity to show us the high character individuals that
Mhm.
they are, and these things will come up. And so it's, if he continues to play the way that he is, it's not going to be the last time he's asked about that.
He even
um
dropped a dude on me. Like he was serious.
so we'll get to that and some other items as they get ready to take on the Brew Crew, a first place team in a very, very important stretch for these San Diego Padres. Thanks to OG's, the sponsor of the On Fire podcast. OG is a fantastic place to check out whatever your game of choice is. Obviously, Padres games. I got a million TVs there, so you can watch the pods. And then what else we got? Travelers Championship this weekend, Stanley Cup Final Game 6, Edmonton and Florida coming up on Friday. No more NBA Finals games because that was kind of a dud. Lots of soccer. Every tournament imaginable is going on right now. Go watch Messi or the United States or whoever else. San Diego Wave. You can catch it all at OG's. Great menu items, constantly updating their menu. Fantastic beer list. So thanks to OG's for all they do for the On Fire podcast and the NBC7 sports team. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It's the On Fire podcast. He's Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. And Derek, let's get straight to it. Some time in the clubhouse for the first time in what feels like a long time. I guess it was about a week ago. I was in there after the sweep against the A's. Gosh, it feels like a
Mhm.
long time ago. Jackson Merrill hit a couple homers. Donovan Solano hit a couple homers. Walk off. Thought, man, this team is trending in the right direction. Springboard into a series against the lousy Mets team. We saw how that went. And then they played the Phillies. That's why the Mets series was concerning, because you knew it would be a tough few days in Philly. Fortunately, they scratched away with the series finale. And man, what a performance for Matt Waldron. We'll talk about him. I know you talked to him as well, but what was, give us a vibe check from the Padres clubhouse.
It's just another day. Really, I think they've kind of taken Mike Schultz a whole. You know what? This is series, man. Just it's another day. Do what you got to do. We try to win every game. Don't take this one too harshly. Don't put too much into this. Don't read too much into that. Unless it's positive, then you can read all you want into it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like, we're back. Nice to be at home. Let's go out and start a series against the Brewers, which you kind of expect in the middle of June. You know, we've gotten to that summer solstice. Summer's begun. We're at longest day of the year by daylight time. It is what it is. You know, that was really that kind of the vibe of, all right, we're back home. Let's go out and win a series right now. This team tends to do a really good job of simply turning the page on playing very bad baseball, which is, you know, something that you have to be able to do. And this is bizarro world, right? Like we talked about this before. The one game that they win on the road trip is in Philadelphia, a place where the Phillies had not lost a regulation 9-inning game at home since Jackie Robinson Day, which was April 15th. And they did it against Ranger Suarez, who was going to be starting the All-Star game. Like that's the one game that they win on the entire road because of course.
Yeah. You talk about turning the pages. They've had to turn a lot of pages so far this year, probably more than they would like.
They're in the middle of a Stephen King book at this point.
And yeah, like, you know, you could look at the Phillies series and say, you know, had a real opportunity to take that one. But even now, like looking back on the Oakland series, they could have easily lost that series. You win 2 straight games in walk-off fashion. And so, the both of them could have gone in either direction. They sweep one, which was great. And then they come away with finale against Philly, which, probably softened maybe the line of questioning a little bit and led to some slightly better moods than there might have been had they gone 0 for 6 on that road trip. But alas, they got that one. And they've been a steady crew. Try not to get too high, try not to get too low. I haven't heard Mike Schilt touting their record about series 1 lately, because it was 7 of 9, 8 of 10 or whatever, and now it's probably like 8 of 13 or something like that. It's not, maybe not quite 8 of 12 or 9 of 14 or whatever.
It's 1 of 3 now.
Yeah, exactly. Not quite as impressive as it was at one point. But the situation is what it is. Like, there's a good chance, a really, really good chance, that kind of regardless of what they do, September's going to roll around. They're within a couple games, good or bad, of that last wild card spot, and hopefully they can get hot and go on a run and make it happen. You fear that one of these other teams can get going. Like, do the Cubs wake back up? Do the Giants like get something clicking? The Diamondbacks, they look like the World Series contending team that they were late last year again. Like, that's the one fear. But they've just kind of been scuffing along, and you've got these pack of like 9 teams that are right there
within
like
2 games. Yeah, the last wild card spot.
Yeah, and so that's it. It's made it kind of an interesting thing to watch, because like we find ourselves talking about like wild card races more than we typically do at this juncture. But
no, we know we're not winning the division. The Dodgers are going to. We've been saying since they signed Shohei Ohtani that the Dodgers are going to run away and hide in the division. The division's never been on the table. If we're talking, it's always been wild card.
I ask you this then, because, when you are in a season like this and you're kind of teetering a little bit, like, okay, maybe they get hot and they make the playoffs, maybe they fall apart and this team has some real questions to answer. It seems like, and Schilt has even talked about like, hey, we're in position in playoff position at this moment. But it is just kind of holding on to a wild card spot. I guess from a big picture standpoint, like, is that okay? Are we content with that? Because it seems like not long ago, there were real hopes and aspirations to actually contend a little bit more with the Dodgers than they have. And when you reference, like, it's not a competition anymore, and maybe there was a point in time where that was a real aspiration.
Yeah, there was. And that was when, Juan Soto was here and Xander Bogaerts had just, was coming on board. And there was a whole bunch of stuff that you had that you could possibly look at it on paper and say, yeah, you can contend with the Dodgers, especially, going into the 2023 offseason. LA didn't do a whole lot, kind of, rode what they had. And then you have to look at what the actual situation is. And over the course of a 162 game season, this Padre roster is not going to be better than that Dodger roster. It's just not going to happen. So what you have to then look at is, okay, well, how do we get in the playoffs? It has to be through a wild card. And what we've seen already this year against some really good baseball teams is in a 5 or 7 game series, the Padres can beat anybody. And that's the exciting part of this. They have to get in. Over 162, no chance you're better than the Dodgers. Over 7, you've shown you can be better than the Dodgers. So that's what you have to then look at, because that's why baseball expanding in the wild card was such a smart idea, because you have these teams like the Diamondbacks last year. They were not the same team at the end of the year that they were at the beginning of the year. The Padres are hoping to be the same thing. They're not going to be the same team at the end of the year that they were at the beginning or in the middle of the year. They're hopefully going to be better with moves that AJ makes, guys getting healthy, getting Joe Musgrove back, any number of things that makes this team better then than it is now. So that's why you have to look at it that way, is there's no chance you're beating LA over 162, but you damn sure can beat them over 7.
Yeah, no question about that. I think it just kind of makes this part of it a little bit of a drag, like the regular season's just
wild cards
haven't
win
been
all the time.
Fun. No, for sure.
The Miami Marlins franchise has never won a division championship. They've won 2 World Series. Which would you, okay, let me ask you this. Which would you rather be? Would you rather be since 1997? Would you rather be the Marlins or the Dodgers?
Well, since 1997, I'd rather be the Marlins.
There you go. Well, they've only been around since 1993. So
And even, look, even I think there is, and there often is like a middle ground there too. Like, okay, say the division is off the table, even if you're in a position like the Braves, there are three spots. I think we've expected this team to be good enough in recent years, last couple years, to stake its claim to one of those wild card spots and to be in that position kind of throughout the season, and not to have such fear and trepidation, this roller coaster ride for the fans and all of us around the team to kind of go through. So I think even it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. Okay, maybe it's not realistic to expect them to really contend with the Dodgers. But 4 or 5 games better each year, you're solidly in the playoffs, and there's a little bit less angst around this team. So I think that's kind of the thrust of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And honestly, I tend to like moments more than sustained excellence. I'd rather be the Marlins give me 2 World Series championships over 54 division championships and 1 World Series in a 60-game season.
Yeah, that a lot of people refer to as a Mickey Mouse World Series.
Yeah, and then you have to deal with the downside of being the Marlins, but you've got those 2 rings, man. And I would give me 10 losing seasons in a row for 2 World Series.
Well, but one of those, I mean, it's been 21 years now, so it's not quite fresh on the mind anymore.
2003 was the last time, but they beat the Yankees in that World Series.
That's true,
and that's worth it alone.
Yeah, well, and that Cleveland team in '97, right? I mean, they were a wagon too, So you're beating really good teams.
Manny Ramirez, Albert Bell, Jim Thome, Charles Nagy. That was a good ball club.
So let's get to the Merrill stuff. We mentioned off the top. I know he talked about his recent surge, what's gotten into him. 5 homers in his last 7 games. I think over his last 13, he's got like a 300 average with a 1300 OPS. Out of 15 hits, 9 are extra bases, 5 homers, 4 doubles. He's been tearing it up. What did he have to say? We'll start with the Rookie of the Year question that has generated some traction on social media.
Oh, he said, "Dude, I don't even care about that," which I knew he was going to say. I just want to see with how much venom he would spit when he said it. And by the way, I freaking love him for this. I love this kid for this. He was like, "Dude, I don't care about that. I don't care about Rookie of the Year talk. I don't care about All-Star game voting. I don't care about that. I care about winning. I care about this team and what's going on with this club and winning ball games right now." And what's great is you look him in the eye when he says it, and it's not lip service. It's not like, this is what the rookie's supposed to say. It's what the guy's supposed to say. Like he believes that this is how he lives. This is his ethos. This is his mantra. He doesn't care. He can win 6 MVP awards and be like, "I don't care. Did we win a World Series? Then the season sucked. I hit 65 homers. We didn't win the World Series. Season sucked. I drove in 280 runs in 1 year. Did we win the World Series? No, the season freaking sucked." That's how Jackson Merrill is wired. So it was like, I loved hearing the kid say that.
Well, and it was similar after that A's game where he homers twice and hits the walk-off. And I asked him just kind of about the emotion of that moment, and they got the sweep and the game was kind of hanging in the balance. And it was a very similar answer. It was just about, helping the team win games. And that's the priority. And, he didn't get caught up in the other stuff. He said he blacked out in the moment, doesn't remember it, yada, yada, yada. But in terms of kind of soaking in all the glory and all that, it's just not. And he's been really consistent about that in those big moments. And when he's played well and this and that, it being about the team first. And so he continues to check that box and say the right answers, in every turn. Did he talk much about just kind of what's gotten into him, what sparked for him a little bit? Because I think, it's funny. He was asked about his power after that A's game. He's like, "I'm still growing. I've got way more potential to add more power." And then what does he do Friday and then Saturday and then Wednesday? Just keeps hitting homers.
Well, he said it's experience. He's gaining more experience. He said power surges come and power surges go. So he's on a heater right now. That's what's wild. In his first 67 big league games, he had 3 home runs. He's hit 5 since Wednesday, which is crazy to think about. I mean, the guy is, when they come in bunches, and they always say power is the last thing to develop. But what he said was he's just being consistent with his approach, and consistent with the approach. And a lot of them, 3 of them come off of left-handed pitchers, which is impressive. Usually young lefties have trouble squaring up good left-handed pitching. Merrill's not having any trouble with that whatsoever. The kid's just a good hitter because he's staying in his approach, and he really does he simplifies things, and he's really found a way to break the game down to almost a cellular level where he's like, listen, see ball, hit ball. It's like Pete Rose used to say, see ball, hit ball. He's just staying with the same swing, staying with the same approach, and now that he's getting more knowledge of how opposing teams are going after him, and he's not going after pitches in the dirt, and he's making them attack him in the strike zone. He says that's making all the difference in the world. And now he's putting those good swings on the ball. They're starting to carry out of the ballpark as the weather has warmed up as well, too. And as you know, especially at Petco Park, playing day games, it's just different here. You get out into New York, you get out into Philly, the ball carries a little bit better. It does in San Diego at night. So maybe it's just part of weather's warming up. Everybody starts hitting the ball a little bit farther, and you're starting to see him have more success that way as well.
And, he talked about kind of the lefty thing too, right? And I think he said this a couple times, like, I just didn't have many opportunities. And so, we could read into what he has and hasn't done, and we can look at the splits and all that. But, it goes back to what you said off the top, like experience is part of it. And now he's had a chance to get that experience and now like prove himself on a more consistent basis. Like he's an everyday guy. Like there's no question about it. He is an everyday guy for this team as it stands right now.
Yeah, well, I asked him about that, and kind of the secret to lefties. Like there is no secret. All I'm doing is I'm getting a chance now. Like early in the year, he wasn't getting many chances against left-handed pitching, which is what you should do with a 20-year-old who never played more than a handful of games above Double A.
Give him a chance, Schulte. Give him a chance.
Yeah, exactly. So then when he got a couple of chances, as he said, he made the most of them. And then when you start having success, well, I mean, Schulte at this point's got to be scared to take that kid out of the lineup against no matter who's on the mound. So he said his career splits have never been bad against lefties. He's just getting chances to show that now.
Yeah. And that made me look it up. I was just jotting it down. Now, in terms of way more at bats against righties than lefties in both these cases. It's a more limited sample size. But in 2022, 379 average with a 972 OPS against lefties. Last year, 300 average, 833 OPS against lefties. So,
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That'll play. And that's enough in that limited sample size to make it a broader sample size and give him more opportunities to play. And so that's good. And that's what we're seeing. And it's just been fun. There's been a couple really cool storylines. And I think the Jackson Merrill talk was like really big early on, did some good things early in the season, had a bit of a quiet stretch, but really hasn't had like a sustained. I think he had like a 5-game stretch without a hit, and then beyond that, hasn't been
over 15 somewhere in there, which is going to happen.
It hasn't been more than 3 games at a time since then, and now he's really like woken up here in the last couple weeks. It's been super, super impressive, and I think it's that, and it's Matt Waldron being the ace of the staff in terms of Jerks and Profar. Obviously, he should be an all-star. I think he's like one of the leading outfield in votes.
He leads all outfielders in votes. Yes. Real quick before you jump onto that, one thing I want to say, I forgot this. I asked Schulte about the Rookie of the Year thing. Said, Jackson says he doesn't give a damn. What do you think about it? And he says, for the organization, it's a real good feather in the cap because it means that you're developing players and they're having success for you. So it does mean something for the organization. And I went and double checked and looked it up. The only Padre ever to win the Rookie of the Year award was Benito Santiago in 1987. Like it's
been a minute.
Jake was a runner up. Toddy finished in the top 3. Like they've had some guys, up there. And by the way, Tatis should have won that over Alonso. If he hadn't gotten hurt that year, he would have run away with it. But I digress. It is weird almost. They've only had that one really great season by a rookie where other guys have deserved it. I'm hoping Jackson can unfortunately, Paul Skeens exists. So, and when you have all that hype around somebody who's also doing what he's doing, it's going to be almost impossible for him to win it, being in sleepy San Diego, but he certainly is deserving. Someday they're going to get another one.
Well, Skeens is in sleepy Pittsburgh. I don't know how much, it's a little bit close to the East Coast. I guess maybe that matters, but
Skeens had almost as much hype in college as Caitlin Clark did. Like he came in tailor-made to do stuff.
Yeah. And you never know with pitchers. We'll see. I mean, hopefully you obviously want Paul Skeens to stay healthy and pitch well because he's fun to watch, but
he's very fun to watch.
Yeah. So, So I'll ask you this: if it's the old school playoff format, and you've got a 1-game wild card series, who are you pitching from the Padres staff right now?
Is Yu Darvish healthy?
Sure.
Is Joe Musgrove healthy? I know where you're
Sure.
going with this. No, I'm not starting Matt Waldron in that game. I do have Matt Waldron on the short list of guys to come in if something goes haywire.
Yeah.
But if you have a Yu Darvish who's been in that crucible, if you have a Joe Musgrove who has been in those situations and are both healthy and very good, you're going with those guys. And
They're as
it's not
healthy.
particularly close. And Dylan Cease might be number 3, and Michael King might be number 4 because Michael
There
King's
is-
been very, very good this year.
There is. I was going to say Michael King. He'd be on my short list right now. I guess, like, yes, they are healthy, but we are also talking kind of their current versions of themselves, where it's hard to know one game, 1 week to the next, and then you have this one guy that for 8 straight starts is just shoved no more than 2 runs in any single start. And you know, if you go like
over his ERA over his last 8 starts, 145 ERA over his last 8 starts, and he's not walking anybody.
no,
That's the wild thing. Like I asked him about that. Like a knuckleball is a caustic pitch. Knuckleballers walk dudes. You know, how are you not walking people and having this kind of success? He's like, I've figured out that I really rely on the knuckleball, and I know that I can throw it when I need to. And he's throwing it in more, 2 and 3 ball counts now too, which is impressive. So he's got a lot of confidence in everything that he's throwing, and I think that's really led to the cut down on the walks for a guy who relies mostly on the knuckleball.
yeah, and that was big time stuff getting out of the first on Wednesday when the bases are loaded. Strikeout of Castellanos there. I think that's my favorite of the knuckleballs, the one we've seen a few times, where it almost seems to have some rise to it, like tons of run into a righty, in this case Castellanos. But it almost like gets up and in him a little bit, like up and in the hands. And Castellanos is trying to like get his hands inside and get a piece of it, and he can't. So I mean, it flutters in so many different directions. That one that like starts in the middle of the zone and then on a righty like ends up right here. I just don't know what you do with that. And then Schwarber, I think it was the 5th inning, 91 miles per hour, 2-seamer, thigh high, hip high on Kyle Schwarber in the zone. The guy that hit 3 homers over the last 2 days, one of the most feared guys that you're going to face. And he gets some swinging late and striking out on that pitch. And then, like in the 7th inning, he gets like a wild hack from Schwarber to strike him out. It's like, how is he doing this? And, I think it's the knuckleball. Everything, the way things play off the knuckleball, the unpredictability of it. And then all of a sudden, 91 looks a lot faster than 91. And it's got some, run to it. It's been awesome to watch.
I said it before, man, he's a bad mother knucker. He's got to just rely on that pitch because it makes all of his other pitches that much better. Alec Boehm even said that. He's like, usually with a knuckleball, you kind of know what you're getting, but this dude throws a bunch of other stuff you have to respect. So that knuckleball plays everything else up. And you're getting Schwarber that way. I don't know why Kyle Schwarber hates San Diego so much, but he's got like I think it's like a 1100 OPS in his career against the Padres or something stupid like that. Like
Right.
he just demolishes Padres pitching. I don't know what it is, no matter who it is, until Waldron gets up there. He's almost like the kryptonite, which is fantastic to see. But he's been awesome. He has been. Now I say right now in this iteration of the Padres pitching staff, he's probably the ace given how he's going at the moment. Every time he takes the mound, I go, you know what? I've watched too many knuckleballers. I've seen this happen where that day it's not there and it becomes batting practice. So that happened against, his 9 starts ago against Arizona where it just wasn't working. It's going to happen again at some point this year. But the good thing is it doesn't take much to get it back. So he's going to have those outliers. The bottom line is he's not as bad as he is during those games, like that game against Arizona. He's probably not as good as he's pitched this last 8-game stretch, but I think he's much closer to what we've seen recently than the other side of it. So he's a guy you can definitely rely on. And if he's a number 5 starter in your rotation, you got a darn good rotation.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's the stopper. And I mean, yesterday, the Phillies game is like a perfect opportunity of like the type of game where you could you could understand if he had a blow up type of start because you're playing against the Phillies. It's on the road. It's 90 degrees. It's typically humid in Philly. How does the stickiness and the sweat and all that, like with your grip of the ball and all that, tough first inning, bases loaded, you could easily be like, all right, he's going to have starts like this. And then he goes, throws 7 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. And so to weather one like that, you could very easily end up being one of those types of outliers. I think is super, super impressive. And, Michael King's been good, he had a Snellish kind of start against the Phillies, where he wasn't super efficient. But by and large, he's been good of late, not giving up homers at the same rate that he has, which
12
is
strikeouts the outing before that.
yeah, which is really, really good. He hasn't given up a homer his last 4 starts, far and away his longest stretch of the season. He's only given up 3 homers since the start of May over the course of 9 starts. So that part is kind of out of the way. I asked him about that after the Oakland game. He was just like, it's just keeping the ball on the ground. I think those hard hit balls are on the ground instead of the air. It hasn't been a crazy adjustment. But he's been pretty good. Dylan Cease is just straight up missing his last time out, particularly with the fastball. And then you obviously have the Joe situation. You got Fort Wayne on Wednesday. Schilt said his next start will be with the Padres, right? So, hopefully he's healthy. And hey, last time he came off the IL, he threw 24 scoreless innings. So hopefully we get that version of Darvish once he's back.
Yeah, good reports on you, which is nice. And you got to throw to Ethan Salas, which was kind of cool to
nice.
just
Yeah,
to see
right.
that. Yeah, down there in Fort Wayne. The numbers weren't great, but he was basically just trying to stay healthy and tinker, as we know you likes to do. Gave up a home run to a kid at high A who will always be able to say that he hit a home run off of Darvish, which is cool for that kid. But if you look at the numbers of the box score, 7 hits, 6 runs, and 3 1/3, something like that. Don't worry about that. Lots of guys go down and don't have success in minor league starts, and they come back and they're fine. They're just trying to test themselves physically to make sure they're okay and not actually trying to get out. So yeah, Yu's going to be just fine. And Michael King's upped his changeup usage by like 8 or 9% this year. That pitch is a really, really good pitch. And the baseball savant hitter metrics or bat tracking metrics now for squaring up and stuff. He's on the top 5 most difficult pitchers in baseball this year to square up. So he's got something working there, and it's really taken off after the home run binge he gave up early in the season.
Yeah. Anything else from today I wanted to pivot to? There's been a lot of Manny chatter. I don't know if you caught a couple of Manny pieces that have come out.
It's so stupid.
Excuse me. I think, it started Friday night, a 2-1 loss. I think it was the 7th inning. They caught him maybe taking it easy down first base line, blowing a bubble. Here's the thing about Manny Machado blowing a bubble. We've got bobbleheads of Manny Machado blowing a bubble while hitting a home run. So if we're going to be like, oh man, this guy's so cool, he blows a bubble while hitting a home run, are we going to really get mad at him when he blows a bubble when he's running down the first base line? All of a sudden, it's a sign of laziness.
It's involuntary. It's like breathing for him. He's got gum in his mouth. He doesn't even know he's doing it. No, I'm not joking about this. Like honestly, he doesn't know he's doing it. It's like just part of who he is. He's drifting back on a ball, down the left field line, going over the fence. He's blowing a bubble. It's just what he does. He's not consciously thinking, well, I'm going to, dog it down the line here and then blow a bubble. And he's never thinking about that. It just happens. It's like breathing. It's involuntary. And yes, when he's out there on one arm and one leg. People, all right, stop being mad. Get off of the stupid social media. Like stop being angry at everything. He's out there on one arm and one leg. Yeah, if he knows he's out, he's going to take it easy going down the line every now and again in freaking June.
Yeah. And so, it started Friday. Hey, Wednesday, bust it down the line, overturn call, gets on base.
People forget that pretty quickly. You're talking about the previous game.
What ended up being a bases loaded with 2 out situation. So obviously that out or avoiding that out was huge. And that, Higashioka ends up winning the game with his first career triple. So I just think, Manny's got a feel for the game. And Mike Schilt talked about, he kind of offered it up just out of nowhere, which I think maybe indirectly acknowledge what people were saying and acknowledge that the fact that Manny does kind of pick his spots. But I think that's fair. And that part of Manny hasn't necessarily changed. I think it's the same Manny that we've gotten since he came to San Diego. The thing that's changed is the OPS and the home run rate and the batting average and that sort of thing. That's what is ultimately going to hold the Padres back. If Manny Machado doesn't reach those levels, I'm a lot more concerned about that than I don't think there's going to be a situation where Manny not getting down the line is going to cost the Padres a playoff appearance or a playoff game or a loss in a key situation. Now, maybe something happens in September and I eat these words, but I think Manny's been consistent in picking his spots, knowing when to go, knowing when to kind of rein it in a little bit, trying to take care of himself. And what derailed or threatened to derail or maybe held him back for a few weeks in his MVP campaign in 2022, first inning of a Sunday afternoon game in Colorado, busting it down the line, turning his ankle, and we all thought he was going to be on the IL for an extended period of time. So you can look at situations where Manny has more than hustled. I think these things tend to just pop up here and there. People get upset about it. It's probably, it's made bigger now because of his struggles offensively. But to me, this is I really don't care that much about this. I think it's so completely overblown, like you seem to think as well, Derek. And
Yeah,
I'm way
why
more
even bring this up? Where did this come from?
Everybody's talking about it since Friday. It's been Mark Feinsand talked to Manny Machado about it. He talked about the Johnny Hustle comment and how he believes it's been misinterpreted. But
from 6 years ago, he's okay. Okay, did you ever do anything when you were in your late 20s or then you were in your early 20s you regret when you're 30?
no, absolutely. But
Yeah,
Manny
I did.
acknowledged Manny acknowledged that that's followed him around, and he expressed some frustration that people bring it up to get clicks, and he's way more concerned obviously about the people in the clubhouse. He also mentioned people that watch me every single day, rather than people, I think, some of the national folks, the hot take artists that just dip in from time to time, see something, post it, talk about it, and create a stir. He's a little bit less concerned about that, but he understands that this is something that has followed him ever since. But knows that in order for him to kind of stay healthy and stay on the field, I think there is the acknowledgement that, yeah, there's going to be times where it maybe looks a little bit different. He said, something has to be broken for me not to play. My 60 or 70% is 100 for a lot of people in this game. I'm not trying to sound cocky or anything, but I know what my ability can do. And so, yeah, part of it is just, we talk about posting. That's what Manny Machado does. And he wants to be consistent from that standpoint, which I think is the most important thing. Second most important thing is him being 800 plus OPS and being the guy we saw in 2022. I care way more about that than him busting it down the line or not on a Friday night.
Yeah, there you go. Pismo 61. I say keep Manny playing. I still think he's better than the next guy in line. Absolutely. What do you want more of, Graham Pauly? Or do you want 65% Manny Machado? Nothing against Graham Pauly. He's not 65% of Manny Machado. Not at this stage of his career, at least. Maybe he'll get to the point where he's 80% of Manny Machado at some point. He's not there right now. This is the dumbest crap I hear. Good Lord. You people stop. Seriously. Just stop. All right. You don't know what's going on. And I hate to be that you didn't play guy, but it's like you're not in the clubhouse watching the dude hobble around and then taking his butt out there and trying to play 9 innings at third base, which he's in the lineup on Thursday at third base. It's infuriating. It really is infuriating. People going off half-cocked all the time about a dude who's come in here and literally tries to put his body on the line every single day to do something good for this organization and for this franchise and for this city and for this fan base. It's just stop. Just stop.
Well said. And if you look at his production, and for some reason, Baseball Reference is having a hard time right now. But I was going back to the last 28
crap right now because he's got one hand and he's got one leg.
But it's not crap. I mean, if you go back 28 games,
by Manny standards, it's crap.
But it's less crap than what we've gotten season as a whole. Last 30 games, he's hitting 300 with close to 8. Here it is. Last 28 games, he's got a .300 average with a .752 OPS. .752 OPS, obviously lower than what we expect from him, a .400 slug, because he's got 1 homer during that span. It's like obviously the power is the one thing that's been missing. And every single time he gets into one, we think, okay, now is this the time it's going to come around and he's going to go on the type of run that Jackson Merrill's gone on. But by and large, like, he's been okay. I mean, similar to what we were talking about with Fernando Tatis Jr. before he went on his hitting streak. It's like, okay, like, he's not bad. He's not necessarily hurting you. He's just not peak Fernando Tatis Jr. And then we got a brief glimpse of it, and it was electrifying. Similar, Manny Machado, last month, he's been a good Major League Baseball player. He just hasn't been the Manny Machado that we've come to expect, but it's at least moving in the right direction for a guy whose OPS has been sitting in the 600s all season long. There was another piece that Kevin Acee did for the UT talking about just the power and missing on, 96 in the zone and that sort of thing, pitches that he knows he should be feasting on. And he is, if you go back and read that piece, clearly frustrated. There were some expletives, that had to be edited out, talking about that, because he knows that he should be doing damage, and for whatever reason he's not. And he again acknowledged, like, the elbow's part of that. And so there's a lot that factors into this.
Did you geniuses notice how much he's adjusted this year? I mean, the power is not there right now, right? So what do you do? He's taking the power out of it. He's getting himself on base. What we've seen with this lineup is they can turn the lineup over. Did anybody other than me notice that his hands are higher now? Over the last month, probably coinciding with when he's been a lot better at the plate. He used to have his hands kind of like here, right? So he's able to get load and then get back. Well, with the elbow, he's probably not able to quite do that so much. So what he's doing is he's brought his hands up, and the bat's now tilted a little bit back more on his shoulder. So he has a shorter load, and he can get the bat to the hitting zone quicker. Why? Because he wants to get on base. He's not worried about the home runs right now because he knows physically he can't do it. So he's putting the barrel on the ball and getting on base and keeping the lineup going, which is why the 300 average is showing up. No, he's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark as consistently. He can't swing the same way that he was earlier, and he recognized that, and he changed his approach to try and help his ball club. What is wrong with you people? My God, pay attention.
SoCal Refugee says, Manny is just aggravating at times.
I can see that. He can be a little bit of a red ass. Yes, he can be, and he can come across as arrogant, and he can come across as abrasive, and he loves kids, probably doesn't like adults all that much. And this is probably why, because adults are always throwing this kind of crap in his face.
I do think, what we've seen, the last couple of years, and, just in terms of the way he's spoken about it, and he's gone through, extended slumps, and obviously the injuries, is like, the guy, there is not a lack of, like, care or interest or investment and that sort of thing. Like, I get, I don't really get it, but, like, I understand people, they'll see him run down the first base line and come to, some conclusions about it or make judgments about it. But, similar to Xander Bogaerts, I think you have a guy that works and tinkers and tries. It's not the case of a guy who's just like, nah, it's not working for me. I'm just not gonna, chip away, not gonna try and find the root cause, not gonna find the extra time in the cage. Like, I think he does all that. But he's got multiple injuries that he's working through. And as a result, no doubt some kind of mechanical things that go into it. But I just, in terms of, like, level of concern, I feel similar to Mike Schilt from, what was it, Tuesday, when he was asked about their loss and level of long-term concern. Zero concern. That's kind of, we chuckle at Schilt, answering that question that manner a little bit, and he might end up being right because it is so stacked up, the playoff race. But that's kind of how I feel about, like, the Manny Machado thing, is like, we're really blowing this out of proportion, and it's just not important. And what's important is getting him healthy and getting him to look like and play like Manny Machado. That's what's going to have some real bearing on this team and what it does this year, not him blowing a bubble while he's going down the first baseline.
Yeah, these people who were saying this, a lot of them are the same people who call out sick from their IT jobs because they have a bellyache. It's like, come on. You know, if you had to deal with what this guy was dealing with, you would not be working, especially not at a physical job like 162 game a year playing Major League Baseball. Like, can we get some context in our lives, please? Two things the world are missing right now: context and a sense of damn humor. Just come on. Can we all just laugh and put some stuff into context every now and again?
Yeah. Could
Good
probably be
Lord.
helpful.
So bad. And then, and why am I the Manny apologist all of a sudden?
Well, no, I mean, I agree.
People force me into this position.
I agree with you.
Ugh.
I agree with you. I think you're a little bit more worked up about it than I am. So
you should be spending this podcast talking about baseball, not about a bunch of morons on social media saying Manny doesn't hustle enough. Like, we just spent 10 minutes on this nonsense.
But it's not just morons on social media. I mean, there's been like published pieces about it. Manny's talking about
the morons of the National Writer Guild or whatever.
Schilt acknowledged it.
Nightingale, isn't it?
No, it was Mark Feinsand. Schilt acknowledged it the other day, and so this has been a talking point. This is the blessing of you not being on social media, because you don't catch wind of these things, and then I get to just drop them on you in the middle of the podcast and get the live unfiltered reaction. And so that's what we just enjoyed.
Well, actually, that's pretty good. Yeah. Well, well done.
And you know what? The Padres fans are long suffering, and they're supposed to be in a championship. They're supposed to be in a championship window right now, and this window isn't as wide open. There's not a nice cool breeze coming through the window. There aren't blue skies, there aren't birds chirping outside the window. It's just not as pleasant a window as we.
You just start reading Louis Armstrong lyrics.
I think so. So look, I understand some of the. I think a lot of this is magnified by the fact that, like, if they had 43 wins right now, probably not having this conversation.
Right, and if Manny had 10 homers, 11 homers right now, probably we having this conversation.
And an 885 OPS, 100%. But the situation is such that they're just teetering every single game. Every single series, which way is it going to go? Are they going to fall apart? Are they going to... We've seen it all in the last week. We've seen the series and thought, I was dumb enough to think, springboard, here we go. Going to the Mets, we're going to get some things done. Didn't happen. And now in the last, previous 5 games before Wednesday's game, like, are they going to win again? Like, how's this? Are they going to go 0 for 6 and then have to play the Brewers on a quick turnaround, cross-country flight? And then you got the Nats coming. The Nats are one of those teams that are right there. And then you've got like the subplot of the Juan Soto trade on top of all that. It's just a lot of...
Which Juan Soto trade? There have been a couple of them recently.
Is it the one they won or is it the one they lost?
I asked Shilty about that too. Like, that matters because the Nationals right now are 2 games under 500. The Padres right now are 2 games under 500. They're going to be there with each other in the wild card hunt probably for a long time this season. Washington shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but they're doing it. And they're probably, I don't know if they're going to stop doing it, but these series matter because there is no play-in game. There's no game 163 anymore. It is regular season head-to-head record. That's what puts you over the other team when it comes to playoff positioning. So you can't, futz around and get swept or drop 2 out of 3 to a team that's going to be in your direct competition at the end of the year that you can't then do anything about at the end of the season in a man-on-man, head-to-head matchup. That's gone. And Schilte's like, listen, we don't want to be naive to that. Like, we know that's a thing, but we're trying to win every game we go out and play, which is kind of his default answer to everything. But this means something now. So there is some urgency when the Nationals come to town. And we haven't really said that since Max Scherzer was on the mound a few years back. Daniel Camarena was hitting grand slams off him.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of one of those like dumb media fan things to say, but this might be the most important 10-game stretch of the first half of the season. Could end up being one of the most important of the season because the Phillies, really tough test, Brewers, a first place team, and then one of those teams that you're in the mix with. And, the reality with this team is, when you talk about stuff, you're like, okay, if they go 8-2, crucial. If they go 2-8, man, that really hurts, and that's going to set them back. But knowing the Padres, Probably going to be somewhere between 4-6 and 6-4. And it's going to barely move the needle in terms of the wild card race, just because that's what they've been all season long. And that, again, going back to my point earlier, it just feels like that's what we're in for between now and September. And then it's like, okay, what happens the last 2 or 3 weeks? Or maybe it's what happens the last 2 or 3 days. Who knows? But that's just kind of the way the season's felt and the way things look at this point.
Yeah, but 6-4 Darnay would be good, because it means that you went to Philly and took 1 out of 3, which, again, that ballpark against that team with the way they've been going is I will take that. And then you took 3 out of 4 from Milwaukee, and you took 2 out of 3 from Washington. That means you had a pretty good stretch.
Yeah.
You know, if you go 6-4 again, that's 12-8. If you go 6-4 again, that's 18-12. 18-12 sounds pretty good. And that's only 3 6-4 stretches. That's how you build throughout the course of a baseball season. Problem is, you can't get swept in Anaheim, and you can't get swept in New York. That's what's screwing this whole thing up right now.
Maybe you split with Milwaukee and then you take 3 head up against the Nats. You take 3. If you get into 6, take 3 head up against the Nats, because you're hurting them while helping yourself.
Okay, there you go. So I jumped the gun there too soon. No, you are absolutely right. If you get 6, but basically you need 5 and 2 on this homestand. However that comes, if you sweep the Brewers all 4 and then drop 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, that's somehow not as good as 3-1 and 2-1, which is freaking weird, but that's how baseball is today.
And it would be so like them to take the series against the Brewers and then struggle against the Nats. It's just
that would be in the quintessential 2024 Padres run.
Do you agree with Mike Schilt? Zero concern about where the Padres are right now and how they've been playing?
Given the fact that the entire National League is sitting within 2 games at 500 right now, except, the Marlins and the Rockies, and the Dodgers and the Phillies, no. It's going to be one of those very strange things all the way toward the end of the year. So, and also we've talked about this, Darnay. Schulte's teams always do well. They do better after the All-Star break. They are just better after the All-Star break. So I think we can probably bank on that moving forward. You're going to get Joe back. You're going to get you back. You're going to get Manny, hopefully getting healthy. You're going to hopefully Profar continues doing what he's doing. Merrill continues to improve. I like a lot of the veteran additions that they've made. Camposano gets hot again. Cronenworth gets hot again. They can figure out a way to catch fire a couple times, which you're going to see throughout the course of a season. And I still think if you look at all these other teams that are in the wild card hunt right now, the Padres still have a lot more high-end talents than the Reds do, or than the Nationals do, or than the Pirates do, or than all, insert name of team here that they're going to be dealing with. Even the Giants or the Diamondbacks do. So they're in a good spot right now. So no big level concern. They get to 5 games under 500. That's when I'll start having legitimate concerns.
They're in a decent spot, but everybody's hurt. Joe's hurt. Yu's hurt. Manny has 2 injuries. Tatis has the quad. Profar has the knee. That's what gives me a little bit of pause, is like, hopefully everybody's got stuff they're managing right. But like, the fear is whatever the quad thing turns into a tear. Profar has a month where the knee is just barking at him. Joe or you, or this is just kind of like, this is what we deal with, throughout the season. Pismo, if healthy, I think we can wear the other teams down in the long run. I agree. You make a great point. But you can't control the first 2 words of that statement, which is if healthy.
If healthy. There you go.
And right now they are not healthy. And it seems like every week there's like nobody knew about Profar. And then he goes down with that swing, like, oh yeah, he's had tendonitis in his knee for years. It's been bothering him for a long time. Nobody knew anything about Tatis. I think some people caught glimpses of like, he's kind of walking funny. All of a sudden he's got a day off. Yeah, he's got a quad that's been bothering him for weeks. Are we going to find out that Jake Cronenworth has been playing with a broken wrist? Luis Ariz, like a lot of people have been saying, ever since he had that slide where he did something to his shoulder and neck, hasn't quite been the same. His numbers have dipped since then. We're going to find out that he's got some sort of shoulder or neck strain that Derek, you've probably had years ago that is limiting him. We're going to find out something about Donovan Solano, Luis Campusano. taking baseballs to the nether regions. Is that going to land him on the IL? Like, it just
Dude,
seems
that
like,
one hurt me seeing.
oh
Oh my God.
gosh. But hey,
Oof.
hit a homer. So got that going for
Um, you're going to hear about guys being dinged up throughout the course again, and I've said it 1,000 times, of a 162 game season. The key is don't let it linger. Try to find a way to get it over with. And the schedule is going to lighten up just on a usage standpoint coming up soon here, because as we get to July and going to the All-Star break, remember they played those extra 2 games early. They get an extra 2 days off. You look at, they have like a 3-game series, a day off, a 2-game series, a day off, a 3-game series, All-Star break. So that's going to be a nice long break there to stretch, to help get these guys just a little bit of extra time in there to start to healing up. So hopefully by the time you get to the second half of the season, guys are getting back to a point where like, okay, I just need that. It's so hard to find that extra 48 hours to let something get over that tipping point where you can be okay for the rest of the year in a game like baseball. And right now they just don't, you can't really rely, you can't put Profar down for, a quick 10-day IL stint to let him heal up, because if you need him, he's too important right now.
He's a gamer.
He's a gamer. SoCal refugee, absolutely right. He is a game. A lot of guys on this team are gamers. It's awesome to see.
Like Mike Schilt.
That's why this trade deadline, and we say it every year, but this one even more, like this is going to be massive, because you're going to have to find some depth somewhere. You're going to have to find some guys who are maybe a little younger, somebody you can come in here and give you something, while a couple of your stalwarts just find a way to heal up a little bit.
There's going to be some trade deadline episodes. This won't be one, but there's no question.
And by the way, everybody, all 10 teams in the wild card hunt, they're all probably thinking about this the same way.
And that's what's going to make it really interesting.
It's going to be a wild deadline, because you're going to have like 6 marquee dudes available. Everybody's buying. It's like, except like the White Sox, the Rockies, as many again for now. As many buffering. It's Angry Derek is buffering.
For Nando knows how to yank your chain.
By the way, Fernando, how was the Luke Combs concert?
He said it was amazing. Said he had an awesome time.
Yeah, I would have loved to have gone to that show.
So they'll get one of those days off next Thursday. So day off for them won't be a day off for us, the On Fire podcast, but we'll talk about whatever the heck happens in the Brewers series, the Nats series, the most crucial stretch of the entire season for the San Diego Padres. We'll see about that.
Until the next crucial stretch of the entire season.
Exactly. Nando says go
nice.
see Luke Combs. We will see you next Thursday. Thanks, everybody.